Good night, Belizeans at home and abroad. This is the Belizean Affairs Show number 468. 468. My name is Leonard Brackett. I'll be your host and chairman for tonight. And if we have any of our other panelists which are not available at the moment, I'll just try and make sure that I pay attention to bring them in as the program goes on. In the interest of time, I'm like 5 minutes late, so I'll just go ahead and we'll start our program. Tonight, we will deal with some constitutional matters and legal case law matters, as well as other political issues. But I'll bow my head and say a short prayer, after which I'll do a short reading, and then we go into the program proper. Thank you very much again to those of you who are going to be viewing our program while we're live, and for those who spare the valuable time to review our program sometime after it's finished, maybe tonight after you get home from work, or maybe tomorrow during the week or during the weekend or other occasions when you might have free time available to you. We do appreciate your valuable time spent in reviewing what we have to offer, and we hope that what we have to offer may be of some positive public benefit for you or Belizean people at home and abroad and others. I'll just close my eyes and say a short prayer. Divine loving Father, once again we come before thy divine presence, asking that thou would continue to have mercy upon us. Thou knowest our hearts, our desires, even our most secret thoughts, loving Father. We pray that thou would let the words of our mouth and the meditation of our hearts and the contractness of our mind be acceptable before thy divine presence, that thou would grant us the words to speak tonight during the course of this program, and may whatever we say be to the benefit and well-being of our country and its people, as well as to thy endeavors. We pray that thou mayest bless this country of the United States of America, its people and leadership, that thou would bless our country of Belize, its people and leadership as well, and that thou would have mercy upon the rest of humanity and bless us as well. Those who are in earthquakes, volcanoes, tornadoes, hurricanes, typhoons, and all manner of devastation and pestilence on the face of this earth, both man made as well as natural, especially for those who are in war zones, who are being killed and hurt and deprived of their limbs and lives, sometimes for no justifiable reason. We pray that thou mayest have mercy upon us all. We ask these mercies in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you very much for those who have allowed us the privilege to participate in our preliminaries for the program. I'll just go and do a reading from Mark chapter 4, and I'll start at verse 25, and it reads, "For he that hath, to him shall be given, and he that hath not, from him shall be taken, even that which is that which he had." And he said, "So is the kingdom of God, as if a man should cast seeds into the ground, and should sleep and rise nigh night and day, and the seeds should spring and grow up. He knoweth not how, for the earth bringeth forth fruit of herself, first the blade, then the ear, after that the full corn in the ear. But when the fruit is brought forth, immediately he putteth it in, a, in the sickle, because harvest is come." And that is our reading for tonight. And I don't see any of our other panelists available to host it, so I'll just proceed. I'll do a short public service caution as regards to traffic accidents in our country of Belize and all the other extra mayhem that's going on in the public as well as private. And I'd like to say to our people, we know that we're in the June to November period, which is our hurricane season. We see that the government is not doing and has not been doing what needs to be done to prepare us in case we have a hurricane. We pray that we don't, but we still need to be cautious and careful and be alert. So we have had quite a bit of flooding recently and a lot of heavy rains. And a lot of that rain is still coming down from the mountains into the river valleys, and we got to be careful with excessive flooding as well. That being said, I'll start the first part of our program for tonight, which is to speak to some constitutional matters, being Friday. I don't see anybody else yet. Uh, the following commentary citations were made by myself, Leonard Brackett, for a public benefit awareness, which was instigated by the Sea Smoke variety show program, which had invited me and had inquired of me as a guest, who was at the time of this writing, which was May 22nd, 2022. I was in San Francisco, California, as a guest, and then the host of the program was Mr. G. Mike Reed, who was in Belize, and the program was being engineered by Mr. Clinton Young in New York. I titled the matter Belize Constitution Act, and I went on to say the Belize Constitution Act is the supreme law of Belize, as excerpted and cited by myself, Leonard Brackett, on the 27th of May of 2022. Those citations was taken from Cap 4 of the Constitution of Belize, Part 1, Section 2, Subsection 1. I see getting a message that's distracting my attention. Just a minute. I also cited Part 5 of the Constitution of Belize, Section 6, Subsection 1, Subsection 2, 3, and and I also cited Section 37 of the Constitution, Section 1, 2, 4, 6, and as well I cited for this particular uh, commentary, I also cited Part 4 of the Constitution of Belize, Section 30 and 32 and 33, Subsection 2. And lastly, but not least, I cited Section 34 of the Constitution of Belize, Subsection 1, 2, 3, and 4 of the revised version, electronic version of 2011. I gave the whole citations and the commentary main topic: sovereign powers of ascension, executive authority, and governance, accountability, empowerment. And as previously cited, in Part 1 of the Constitution, page 16 of the electronic versions, it says the Constitution is supreme law. Many of you will recall for many years now we've been making these constitutional references and reviews and teachable moments on Fridays. Primarily, uh, we were concerned because we got to find out that most of our people in the country, 98% of them, by the way, are not familiar with the Constitution, its contents, and or its interpretation. All they know is we have a Constitution, and they're expecting the government to follow what they swore allegiance to the Constitution and the people and country of Belize. And so they vote for these jackals, expecting that they're going to comply with their sworn oath, abide by their sworn oath, and have fidelity to the Constitution and the people of Belize. And as the years been going by, we've been finding out that these guys are unwilling, not that they're not able, because they're all intelligent enough. The Constitution of our country can be read by any of the people that comes out of our standard 6 classes and basically have a fair enough comprehension of what is it that is supposed to be all about. But most people, for whatever reason, don't indulge in themselves. Of course, some of them don't have the money to buy one, but they are able to go to the library and pull a copy and read for free. There's no charge to borrow a copy of the Constitution from the Belize Central Library if they were inclined and interested in those subject matters. But they take it for granted that, unless they get hurt by the system or have anything to do with the system, they don't have a need for lawyers, legal help, or legal knowledge and understanding. And so we embarked on this particular program to dedicate at least one night of our programming to the task of enlightening or educating or informing our Belizean brothers and sisters about what is it that the Constitution says in regards to particular issues, especially those that the government is falling on its face and arbitrarily and capriciously violating the rights of the people. So I'll proceed then, and like I said, especially Section 2 of our Constitution, at least by now, after so many years, I would hope that most people would know what that particular section is and what it's about. But I'll go ahead and read it as it's part of the presentation for tonight. Section 2 of the Constitution of Belize, subsection 1 says, this Constitution is the supreme law of Belize, and if any other law is inconsistent with this Constitution, that other law shall, to the extent of the inconsistencies, be void. In other words, the legislature is authorized to make laws, but those laws, and by the way, I just read that the Constitution is the supreme law of the land, and we only have one Constitution at a time. So any other derivative laws under that Constitution would have to comply and be constitutional in order for it to be legal, lawful, and have constitutional backing and legality to it. We cannot have a constitution that is the supreme law of the land and have these jackals go to the House of Representatives and make a law that is contravening the Constitution just because they feel like making a law. They have to make sure that when they make those laws, as a minimum, those laws should fall within the bounds of the Constitution itself. So they can make a million different laws. But if all of them are outside of the bounds of the Constitution, they're all supposed to be deemed as null and void. We have been telling them that for quite a while now. The courts have been telling them that for quite a while now. And in our system of governance, as a democratic, parliamentarian, non republic democracy, we expect that these people will abide by the law because we consider ourselves to be a lawful society, a society of law and order. But as most people realize, when you're dealing with human beings, especially those who are granted the privilege to wield power or to exercise power on behalf of the population, every so often you have a bunch of scoundrels that get together, sit in cabinet, and conspire against the best interests of the people and the country because they presume that the powers are vested in them to do that if they so choose. When in fact they forget to remember that they swear allegiance and an oath to not do evil or to commit any crimes under the color of lawmaking and to be lawful. And they forget that the Constitution says, under Section 6 of the Constitution of Belize, subsection 1, we are all equal under the law. You don't have two constitutions, one that is governing the people and the other one governing the people who we have entrusted with our governance power, so that they can be above the laws that govern the people and not be held accountable for criminal conduct. Because that's our problem. It's not that our system isn't good enough. It's that the people that we entrust our system with or to are onerous instead of being honorable. They relate to us and our system of governance and power and authority and our economics and our property or patrimony as if they have a right to ride roughshod over us because we can't hold them accountable on an election, or if we decide to overthrow the system, by some other means. They feel that they have the authority of governance powers in their hands and pockets, as well as the security systems to keep us in check while they are violating the laws, and they will not prosecute themselves. We have had recently, under this present PUP government, a bunch of malfeasance occurring, a bunch of illegal behavior. And they turn around and try to exculpate it or try to come up with other justification for us to not demand of them accountability. In fact, as a matter of fact, they don't want nobody to speak to the ills that they do. They go to the house and they make laws to oppress and suppress people's right of free speech or constitutionally endued and endowed enshrined rights. Uh, I'm doing a lot of commentary when in fact the program is going to be kind of lengthy tonight. I'm going to give you that as a heads up too, just in case for some of you who may need to take a little break once in a while the program is still on. I'm giving you this advisory that for tonight's program, it's going to be lengthy. And I don't see any of my other colleagues yet in the background available. And so I'm just going to continue pursuing the program as I had it laid out. And hopefully, I'll have enough time left in the course of the program to complete the exercise, in addition to all the commentary that I may be making here and there or in between the constitutional citations from the Constitution itself. As I read just now from Section 2, subsection 1, it says, the Constitution is the supreme law of Belize, and if any other law is inconsistent with this Constitution, that other law, to the extent of its inconsistencies, comma, is void. Part 4 of the Constitution of Belize, page 49 of the electronic version, deals with the executive, the executive authority of Belize. And under Section 36, subsection 1, it goes on to read as follows. The executive authority of Belize is vested in Her Majesty or His Majesty in the demise of Her Majesty, Queen Elizabeth of the United Kingdom uh, and Commonwealth of Great Britain. And because of her demise, and we have a new king, King Charles, uh, that power or authority, executive authority, is now vested in him. It is not vested in the Prime Minister, because the Prime Minister of Belize is not the head of state of Belize. The head of state is the same person I just made reference to in terms of what the Constitution says, that the executive authority is vested in His Majesty. It didn't say it's vested in the Prime Minister. Even though a lot of our people have that perspective or concept that because the Prime Minister leads cabinet, that somehow or another he is the executive with the highest executive authority in the country, all because they don't know their constitution and they're not being properly informed. Uh, it goes on to say here under subsection 2 of the said section 36 that I just read earlier, the second paragraph goes on to say, subject to the provision of this Constitution, the executive authority of Belize may be exercised on behalf of Her Majesty or His Majesty in her demise by the Governor General, either directly or through officers subordinate to him or her as Governor General, for example, the government cabinet ministers, the Prime Minister, the government cabinet ministers, and others, etc. I would like to emphasize this particular section here in terms of where it says uh, that though the executive power may be exercised by the Governor General either directly or through officers subordinate to him or her. And those subordinate officers are the Prime Minister, the other members of cabinet, for example, and all other subordinate officers to them. The hierarchy is that they're all subordinate officers to the Governor General. It goes on to say on the paragraph, subsection 3, nothing in this section shall prevent the National Assembly from conferring functions on persons or authorities other than the Governor General. In other words, the Assembly does not have any power unto itself to confer any authority or powers to the Governor General. It is the Governor General who has the executive authority and powers to confer onto the members of the Prime Minister, the members of cabinet, and or the legislator, or to the judiciary. By the way, I just made reference to three of the entities that comprises our uh, three prong or three entities that makes up our system of governance. That is that under the separation of powers, we have the executive, the judiciary, and the um, parliament, the House of Representatives, and the Senate. So, under the theory of the separation of powers, the prime minister should not be dictating or trying to control the judiciary, which is a separate branch of government, and an independent branch of government with its own constitutional powers and authority vested in it to exercise the functions required under the judiciary branch of the government. So likewise, the prime minister is empowered to lead cabinet and the executive functions of the government on behalf of the head of state. And the legislative body is empowered to make laws, to amend laws uh, through the legislative process. But the legislative process does not have any power unto itself to disband any sections or portion of our tree governance uh, system. That is that the judiciary cannot one day decide to abolish the executive or the legislative. Neither can the legislative make a law to abolish the judiciary or the executive. And neither can the executive manage the country in such a way as to not allow any of the other two branches of government to coexist and perform their functions, because that's the way our system of governance is set up. Um, I'll go back to the essay or the commentary, and I would like to read uh, section 37 of the Constitution. Just spare me a second. Let me open the electronic version of the Constitution and go to that particular section. Okay, just a second. I'll be there right now. Constitution of Belize. Let me pull that up quickly. And then, oops, no, no, did the wrong one. Sorry. Okay, just a little more. Let's see what's going on here. Okay, here we go. I'm pulling up the electronic version of the Constitution of Belize. I would like to go to, I think section 37. I'm all the way at section 110 right now, so I gotta let me make it small so I can go a little faster. 94. I need to get to 37. I'm at 59 and I need to get to 37, so just spend another couple of seconds here. 44, I'm getting closer. 37, okay, I got it. Turn it sideways so I can. And it reads as follows: Constitution of Belize, Section 37. subsection 1. Uh-huh. There shall be a Prime Minister of Belize who shall be appointed by the Governor General. So when I said earlier that the executive authority of Belize is vested in the head of state, and the Governor General acting on behalf of the head of state allow some of the executive powers of the country to be exercised by the individuals who, as a majority, win the general elections. They are then assented to the powers of governance by virtue of signing allegiance to the country and its constitution in the presence of the Governor General, who then assents for them to exercise those powers. Like I said, they are subordinate officers, as we read earlier, and the Prime Minister is then appointed by the Governor General. Whenever the Governor General has occasions to appoint a Prime Minister, he or she, as Governor General, shall appoint a member of the House of Representatives who is the leader of the political party which commands the support of the majority of the members of that House. And if no political party has an overall majority, he or she, the Governor General, then shall appoint a member of the House who appears in his or her uh, appear to him or her likely to command the support of the majority of the members of that House. Um, I'd like to go ahead and read section 37, subsection 4, which says, the Governor General shall remove the Prime Minister from his office if a resolution of no confidence in the government is passed by the House of Representatives and the Prime Minister does not renounce his office within 7 days, or the Prime Minister does not ask the Governor General then to for a writ of dissolution of the House and the setting of a new date for new elections. Under subsection 6 of section 37, which we are currently reading, it goes on to say, in exercise of the powers conferred on him or her by this section of the Constitution, which is section 37 as we are currently reading, the Governor General shall act in his or her own deliberate judgment. I will go to part 4 of the Constitution now at page 40, number 46 of the electronic version, which says, Governor General establishment of office. It goes on to say under subsection 30, there shall be a Governor General of Belize who shall be a citizen of Belize, appointed by Her Majesty or His Majesty as head of state, and shall hold office during Her Majesty or His Majesty's pleasure, and who shall be Her Majesty or His Majesty's representative in Belize. As previously alluded, the head of state has a representation in Belize in the entity of the Governor General, who serves at the pleasure of the head of state. That's what all of that implies. I would like to move on to page 47, dealing with the oath to be taken by Governor General. Under Section 32 of the Constitution of Belize, it says, a person appointed to the office of Governor General shall, before entering into the duties of that office as Governor General, they shall take and subscribe the oath of allegiance and office, as I indicated earlier, that the Prime Minister and the other ministers of cabinet would do. In other words, all officers who exercise any powers of governance in Belize, whether it be the Governor General as a representative to the head of state, whether it be any of his or her subordinate officers, such as the Prime Minister or any other ministers of cabinet, or whether it be any other minister of state in any of those ministries from cabinet, or whether it be any CEO, any permanent secretaries, any members of any commission, or any members of any um, uh, entities or organizations that are semi-government, or whether it's any members of the police department, military um, departments, again, such as the BDF or the Coast Guard, or any other departmental head, as well as deputies and any other senior personnel that performs any functions under our system of governance. They're all supposed to be swearing allegiance to our country and to exercise and carry out the orders that are enshrined in our Constitution as an oath that they should take, and which binds them to fulfill the obligation of executing the constitutional requirements under which our country is governed. At, at Section 32 of the Constitution of Belize, subsection 2, it says, the powers and authority of the Governor General shall not be abridged, altered, or in any way affected by the appointment of a Deputy Governor General under this section, and subject to the Governor General's acting in his or her own deliberate judgment. It goes on to say further, as of right now, I'm speaking about the different powers and authorities. I'm speaking about some, not all, okay, of the powers and authorities vested in the Governor General, which may be entrusted to other subordinate officers to exercise or carry out. At page number 48 in the electronic version of the Constitution of Belize, it says, or relates to, the exercise of Governor General's functions. And under Section 34.1, or Section 34, subsection 1, it goes on to further describe. It says, in the exercise of his or her functions, the Governor General shall act in accordance with the advice of the Cabinet or a minister acting under general authority of the Cabinet, except in cases where he or she, as Governor General, is required by this Constitution or any other law to act in accordance with the advice of or after consultation with any person or authority other than the cabinet, or to act in his or her own deliberate judgment as Governor General. I go on to read further under Section 34, subsection 3, which says as follows: whereby this Constitution, the Governor General is required to perform any functions after consultation with any person or authority, he or she, as Governor General, shall not be obliged to exercise that function in accordance with the advice of that person or authority. Why? Because the Governor General have the right and power and authority vested in that Governor General to act in his or her own deliberate judgment and not the judgment of a third party or someone else. Under subsection 4 of the said section 34, subsection 4 says, whereby this Constitution, the Governor General is, I just read that. Oh, no, no, no. It's a little different wording. Same idea, but different wording. So let me just go ahead and read it. Under section 34 of the Constitution of Belize, and subsection 4, it reads, whereby this Constitution, the Governor General is required to perform any functions in accordance with the advice of or after consultation with any person or authority. The question whether the Governor General has so exercised that function shall not be inquired into by any court of law. That is to say, even the court cannot tell the Governor General what to do or not do. Why? Because the Governor General sits at the top of the judiciary. The Governor General sits at the top of the executive as the person that represents the head of state who has the full control over the executive authority of the country. And the Governor General also sits atop of the House of Representatives. That is to say, the House of Representatives makes laws, but none of those laws could become legal, lawful, and or constitutional without the ascension or agreement or quiescence of the Governor General. I hope as we are going through these presentations, these teachable moments, as we call them, that somehow or another we are bringing additional knowledge and information or clarity, as well as proper context to these constitutional issues and the way how they align, the way how the hierarchy is established, and the way how the system operates, sometimes compared to how it should be operating. Because the system many a times is bastardized by our subordinate officers, and they get away with it. They go and they create onerous, illegal, unlawful, and unconstitutional laws, which Section 2 of the Constitution deems as being other laws. In other words, they're not necessarily within the scope of the Constitution. The fact that the legislator makes them doesn't necessarily make them constitutional. Why? Because they make those laws, or the particular laws that we're talking about in terms of those that are not, because there are laws that they make that become constitutional because they're within the bounds of the Constitution. But then there are those other laws as well that they make gratuitously at that, because sometimes they are being told ahead of time before they go and pass these laws in Congress and before they vote on them, that those laws are violative of the Constitution, you know, and they should not be doing that because they are not empowered to make illegal laws. Any law that is illegal is null and void. Any law that does not comply or meet constitutional muster or abides by the Constitution is null and void. You cannot have a law that is unconstitutional, reign supreme above the Constitution, and derogate the constitutional powers and end up hurting civilians or other individuals within the community or the society. If it's illegal, it's illegal. If it's unconstitutional, it's unconstitutional. If it's unlawful, it's unlawful. So you should not be making any illegal, unlawful, and unconstitutional laws in the first place. You're not given any such power or authority. But yet, some of these jackals pretend that they're entitled to do that. And you have people going to jail under bogus charges that are unconstitutional. And when the court turns around and tells the executive that they have erred in their behavior and request of them to take out or strike out those illegal and unlawful other laws, they leave it there as to dare the court to say, well, if you want it struck out or moved, come and do it yourself. Get your own personnel and go take care of it. That's how onerous these people are. That's how, scoff law they are. I can recall a specific incident that I'm going to use to back up what I just said. The former Prime Minister, Mr. Dean Oliver Barrow, was told by the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court during an occasion where a particular case was before the court. They told what had happened is that Mr. Barrow, as the Prime Minister, had taken to the House of Representatives some particular sections of the Constitution that he wanted to abrogate and other parts that he wanted to inculcate or put in or replace. And he was told by the Chief Justice during the course of a case that he was not permitted to do that. That was impermissible for him to bastardize the Constitution in such a manner, especially being a legal-minded, a senior legal personnel himself. And what the man did, put the stuff, he went and voted on the stuff, put the stuff in the Constitution under Section 2, subsection 2, and under Section 69, subsection 9, to say that he, as the person who was wielding the executive powers, to whom those powers was delegated by the by the Governor General, he was arbitrarily and capriciously going to have the Constitution be changed the way he wanted it to be changed. That is to say, whatever Congress made as a law, the judiciary have no right and authority vested in it to question those laws and or to deem those laws unconstitutional when that is the purview of the judiciary. And the executive had no right or authority to assume such an onerous posture as to defy the court. And now we have the present government in power attempting to use those very same sections of the law that were not removed from the Constitution as was directed to be done. They're coming now on steroids with the same type of behavior, only a little worse, and try to use those same unlawful, unethical, illegal, immoral, and unconstitutional bogus stuff to try and claim that they have the right and the power vested in them to contravene the Constitution and to take away basic civil rights. Why? Because they deem it to be so. That's the action of a bunch of scoundrels and scofflaws. And when we tell them that, they get hot under the collar because we are pointing out how they are committing crimes under the color of law. bunch of rascals. Anyhow, let me just proceed with this stuff because I'm getting hot on my own color myself, and I need to be able to keep my cool and present the rest of this particular commentary. Uh, I'll go ahead and read page 49 of the Constitution of Belize, where it speaks about the Governor General to be informed concerning matters of governance. A lot of people are of the opinion that the Prime Minister has ultimate power and don't have to abide by any request from the Governor General, and or the Governor General have no authority or power over the Prime Minister. That because the Prime Minister is elected by the people as a member of a constituency, and because he is the leader of his party, and the Governor General appoints him as Prime Minister by virtue of those facts, that then he arbitrarily and capriciously supplements the power and authority of the Governor General. And they keep propagating those bastardized concepts in regards to what the Constitution says. I go on to read as follows. Section 35 of the Constitution of Belize says, the Prime Minister shall keep the Governor General fully informed concerning the general conduct of the government of Belize. Why? He's a subordinate officer to whom some of the powers of governance is entrusted to him to wield those powers on behalf of the head of state, not on behalf of himself. I go on to read as again the rest of this particular. It says concerning the general conduct of the government of Belize, and shall furnish the Governor General with such information as he or she, as Governor General, may request with respect to any particular matter relating to the government of Belize. I'll read that all the way through once more, just for the hell of it, just because I alluded earlier in telling you that there are people in the country, and by the way, some of them are lawyers, and senior lawyers at that. Some of them have been attorney generals with whom I've had these discussions, and I've been beaten over the head with words and a lot of other uh, ways, you know, just because I insist in letting the Constitution speak for itself and tell us what we are to know that we didn't born knowing, and for which some individuals keep propagating this misconstrued. And in some instances, it's not because they don't know or understand. They just want to be mischievous, and they have an agenda behind which they're hoping that people will fall in line unaware, and then they take advantage of people's ignorance. I'll just read it again, like I said, over for the hell of it. I read it once, and I think that by having read it once, that could be or should be enough for the average person to understand what I was getting at. But just for the hell of it, like I said, I'm going to just go ahead and read it again. And it says, under section 35 of the Constitution of Belize, it says, the Prime Minister shall keep the Governor General fully informed concerning the general conduct of the government of Belize, and shall furnish the Governor General with such information as he or she, as Governor General, may request with respect to any particular matter relating to the government of Belize. And that was the end of that particular commentary. And I went on to close it out by saying that this commentary was a matter of public domain, public education, information, and an effort to enlighten the community. Uh, a friend of mine on Facebook then commented on that same particular item by saying, her name being Miss Betty Day, she said, eye opening, two word. Of course, as short as those two words were, it's very revealing that it was eye opening to her, as well as I indicated earlier, to many other Belizeans, because the majority of the people are unaware of these things that are in the Constitution and the way the Constitution speaks for itself and interpret these circumstances that is being misconstrued out in the public. And this idea that the Governor General is just a figurehead is because they're all wanting to have this idea that the Prime Minister should be the head of state. And there shouldn't be any problem with that, other than the fact that these guys who have been our prime ministers, most of them have been not honorable or honest people. They have been onerous. Basically, almost the same word, but with a different meaning. Because some people would think when I say onerous, for those who really don't understand the meaning of the word onerous, because we are not all at the same station in terms of knowledge and awareness. No? Some people would think that I'm talking about these guys being honorable. They sound alike, different word with totally opposite meaning. Okay? The onerous people are the scoundrels and connivers and lawbreakers, who come to us as politicians and promise to do right by us. And as soon as they get the powers assented to them, they go about doing what they want and to hell with us. In those kind of circumstances, the people are being betrayed, they are being lied to, they are being taken advantage of. But the system requires that you vote for somebody. And if the somebodies that we are voting for turn out to be onerous people, disdainful and scofflaws, and jackals and hyenas and vultures and vampires and vipers, if they choose to be that way, we can't be blamed because they turn out to be like that. They pulled a fast one on the people. They lied to the people and had no intention to fulfill their oath of office correctly and or their promises to the people. You can't blame the people for the evilness of the leaders. The people trust them and hope that they will do right. And at some point, the system is set up. Somebody got to be voted in. Somebody's going to win. Somebody's going to lose. I guess we need to get on our knees and pray harder and hope that the people that we elect would turn out to be the type of people that they offer to be or that we'd hope that they would be. To look out for us and our interests, because that's what governance is. We empower them to do the right thing by us, not to be a bunch of scoundrels, scofflaws, and a bunch of mafiosos, taking our patrimony, stealing our resources from our patrimony, dispossessing us of the resources, the money that should be going to the treasury or that are in the treasury, and stealing it and doing all manner of evil with our natural resources, taking our lands and selling it to themselves or to others for them to get a kickback. As in the case where we are now having this big problem of procurement, that all the different government departments have to procure services, goods and services, but that within those goods and services that are being procured, the system is being corrupted to the point where people are being paid for items that we don't even know as of today yet whether we receive those items and or if we got money, benefit for the money. All we know is that receipts were being paid at much higher price than what the items were supposed to have been procured for. And the people who used to procure those items, who are legitimate providers, have been kicked to the curb so that special individuals, preferred individuals, some of them who have nothing to do with the items that they are procuring or selling to the government, as in the case where you have an engineering firm providing chickens. They don't kill no chickens or process no chickens. So they go out and they get the contract from the government to provide chickens. I don't know what the hell is the government doing anyhow, having such a situation occur. Because you have people who slaughter the animals them and provide them, and who should be given the contract, rather than giving the contract to some family members or preferred friends or whatever, and have those individuals do an additional markup on the real price of the goods and bleed extra money out of the treasury, that we turn around later on and say we don't have enough, so therefore we have to, you know, owe some of the people that need their retirement payment. The government don't have the money to pay them, and are having to stiff them and play all kind of power games with them. Some of the people that die without getting their retirement benefits, while you have these guys living large on the hog. I went on to respond to Miss Betty Day by saying, Betty Day, my dear esteemed learned patriot, venerable sister, and vanguard of Belize, because that's what I consider her to be. I said, many people are not aware of Belize's constitution, prescripts, and or propagating inaccuracies, falsehoods, or yereso, as we would call it in Belize. And then there are people who know better but choose to play the fool or ignorant for whatever reason. I had another friend, Mr. George Mavitt, who also made a comment by saying that I may have missed, I may have missed it, but I was hoping to see a section on the mechanism or process of amending or enacting a new constitution. Of course, he was a member of the PCC, which is the People's Constitution Commission, that used to be named, before that particular name, they used to have a different name by the name of the People, I mean the Constitution Reform Commission. And they got rid of that first name because we bust their butt, pointed out the errors and omissions and their discrepancies and their ill intentions. So the government changed the name of the group, called it the PCC, went to the Congress, got some money issued to them so that they can finance this PCC venture, trying to hoodwink the public, about what is it that the government was after and trying to get done. That is, they propagate the concept or the idea that they wanted to consult the public to see if the public was interested to change their constitution. Why? Because they, the individuals in government, had some changes that they wanted to make, and they needed to get the cooperation or assistance of the public to hopefully get those changes made. They wanted to bamboozle the public into believing that it was the public's interest that they were after, not trying to create laws, constitutional modifications and changes to bastardize the system so that they will empower themselves to commit further crimes with impunity. That's what really they were after. Basically, they wanted to change the whole damn system. Okay? But they had to come trying to soft-soak the people and lie to the people, had stuff in their back pocket that they wanted to include in this process, but they didn't want the public to know until it was too late, when it was already a done deal. But as usual, we took the whip to them, point out the errors of their ways, their ill intentions again, and jack them up with facts, constitutional citations, and you know, uh, basically prove them to be a bunch of scoundrels and scofflaws. So they backed up a little bit, put the stuff on a back burner for a little while, hoping that at some future date they will bring it forward when they think they can ram it through, maybe in a 1 day, 3 sessions reading like they always try to do, which is also illegal, by the way, because the purpose of having constitutional changes or lawmaking is that they are required to publish what they want to have changed so people can figure out whether or not those changes are desirable or permissible. They need to discuss these matters. But instead of doing it and allow it to happen the way it's intended to happen, with a 90-day review, they go ahead and they don't want to do it 90 hours. They don't want to do it, you know, they want to do it in 1 day. And while under emergency circumstances, they are permitted to create laws under emergency situation, 3 readings in 1 day, they use that kind of practice, bogus practice, in almost every instance when they go to the House to create a law. Okay? Um, I replied to Mr. Let me just, yeah, I have time. I replied to my good friend Mr. George Mavitt. Let me read part of the. No, I need to get out of this. Yeah, okay. And go to part of the reply. I replied to him, Mr. George Mavitt, my dear esteemed land, patriot, venerable brother, and vanguard of Belize. The man is a man of substance, very respectable. I, he's, he's my buddy, like I said, my friend. And I hold him in high regards. But every once in a while, we like to chide each other, you know. So his short comment, I'll read it again just in the interest of clarity or context. He had said, I may have, he said, I may have missed, missed it, but I was hoping to see a section on the mechanisms of or process of amending or enacting a new constitution. Now, why he was saying that, like I said earlier, the context within which he was making that statement was that he was a member of of that committee, of that commission. And I had already told him and many others who were members of the commission, as well as others who were not, in previous discussions, that they were just being played and used for ulterior motives on behalf of the Prime Minister and Cabinet. While they thought that what was in writing in black and white, the orders that were given to them, was the basis on which what they would go ahead and try to do, that the Prime Minister would have allowed their output to be basically the foundation for what was ultimately going to be agreed to, as in changing the Constitution either in bits and pieces and or eviscerate it altogether for a new Constitution. And in this particular instance that I was, the article that I just read and dealt with, I wasn't addressing any issue of creating a new constitution or informing them or telling them or mentioning anything about how to go about creating a new constitution. But he was going to be slick and ask me that question because he knew that I am aware of the fact that he's a member of the commission. And if possible, he would have liked to entertain me with a discussion on that particular matter. So I replied to him, parts of the answer to your above question are written, expounded on in other articles by me elsewhere, such as the Belize Constitution Reform Commission, which is a title that I dealt with before, and in that particular Belize Constitution Reform Commission, he would have been able to cite or see the very points that he was asking questions about that he was thinking that I should have been addressing in this other article. You can't say everything that you want to say in one statement, which is why we write these articles and or you know we get together and have these debates and discussions because everything cannot be said in one statement. And had he taken the liberty to go back, well, I shouldn't even say it like that because he knows me, he knows enough about me, and he has known enough about my perspective and my writings and so on. So therefore, like I said, maybe he was just trying to chide me, trying to be funny, because we do that to each other every once in a while. There's a group of us individuals who think that, we think we know enough to be able to have a conversation among us, have difference of opinion, and still be intact. When people like that get together and there are differences of opinion, you cannot remain intact because one way or another, something is going to come up that's going to make you a little better person than you were before the conversation started. That's just reality. We all feed off of each other. We all help and educate each other, or expose each other, or challenge each other to rise to a higher level in terms of what we bring to the table. And the public is that better off for our efforts. So I don't have a problem with conversing or debating or discussing with individuals of different opinion because it informs my knowledge base and it probably helps me. And I believe that it goes both ways. But anyhow, let me get back to what I said to my good friend. Parts of the answer to your above questions are written are written and expounded on in other articles by me and elsewhere, such as the Belize Constitution Reform Commission, which we had dealt with before, like I previously alluded. Uh, um, I opened bracket and I said, sent to you and showing received on October 19th at 8:59 p.m. in your messenger inbox. So I was citing to him factual context and chronological facts that had he read that particular item on that date when it was sent to him or any other date subsequent to that point in time, because it was sent to him in his inbox and it is shown confirmed as received on the particular time and date stamp that I'm bringing to his attention right now. In other words, when we speak to each other and say things, we always back it up, you know, with the context, because, well, that's how we roll. Let me just leave it at that. I don't want to overdo the explanation. Huh? And I went on to say, God bless always, sir. And then my dear colleague, who is also a member, panelist of this particular show, Mr. George, Mr. Gregory Morrison, went on to make a little comment to Mr. George Marvitt by saying, did I get it too, sir? In other words, he saw how I time stamped the stuff that I had sent out to Mr. Marvitt, George Marvitt, and he was chatting, because we always do that, again, like I said, with each other, right? He was chatting by asking, did he also receive it? So I went on to say, uh, Mr. George Morrison, my dear esteemed Leonard, patriot, venerable brother, and vanguard of Belize and USA, I may have sent it to you as well, sir. Uh, I did not take the liberty to go back and go and check the time stamp to verify whether I had. So I just made a global statement to it. Anyhow, I don't want to deal with this particular item anymore. I only have 50 more minutes left, and there was something else that I need would have liked to bring to the attention of the general public. So I'll just forego going any further on that particular article. Uh, Let me just go up here quickly and grab another one that I. Okay, this one is very short. I'm going to try and use this one to close out the show. Like I said, I only have about less than 15 minutes left, and I'll just piggyback this particular item here from August 6th of 2022, which goes on to say the following commentary was made by Leonard, Brackett, myself, to Mr. Hillman Haleup, a venerable friend of mine who happened to pass away since that point in time, August 6th of 2022, and he's now currently deceased. In response to his comment on my Facebook post about Belize PM, Prime Minister of Belize, I titled this short commentary, The Belize Governor General's Purview. And I went on to say, the Belize Governor General is in a pickle of a situation, as she was recommended by Honorable PM Mr. John Briceño, and they expect her as Governor General now, having been appointed by after they recommended her, they expect her to be in their gratitude and to be a pliable facilitating and acquiescent to their agendas. That is that there was a need for a new Governor General because the previous one was becoming infirm. And so the new Prime Minister that had won in 2020, Mr. John Briceño, the current Prime Minister, by the way, had recommended Ms. Salon to become the next Governor General in line. And in the middle of the transition period between when the previous Governor General was showing signs of senility and infirmness, we had an individual by the name of Mr. Stuart Leslie who was wearing two crowns. We would normally say two hats, right? But I choose to use the word crown instead of hat. I'm being mischievous at this point. And the reason why is because I'm trying to keep everything in context while at the same time keeping a smile on my face and trying to avoid biting my tongue by removing it from my jaw when I'm talking about these issues. Okay? The Belize Governor General is the Belize Governor General is in a pickle of a situation, as she was recommended by Honorable Mr. PM Mr. John Briceño, and they expect her to be in their gratitude, to be pliable, facilitating, and acquiescing to their agenda. Otherwise, they would not have recommended her, they would have recommended somebody else with the trust and confidence that they have that person in their pocket, basically. However, I went on to say, the Governor General is accountable to and serves at the pleasure of the Belize head of state, who is not the Prime Minister, Mr. Briceño. The head of state in bracket, I went on to say, Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II of the United Kingdom and the Commonwealth of Great Britain, close bracket. Of course, remember we're talking about this item being first written and posted August 6th of 2022. And we are now, what, August 1st, 2nd? Yeah. No, not, no, we're at the ending of July. We're July 31st. But anyhow, we're almost at an anniversary date from the time this particular item was created, right? From 22 to 26. So that would have been like, we're talking about 4 years back. And at that time, the Queen had not died yet, and she was still then the head of state. So that is the context within which I was reading this particular uh, matter. The Belize Governor General is in a pickle of a situation as she was recommended by the Honorable PM, Mr. John Bisenia, and they expect their mean Mr. Bisenia and his government officials of the PUP party. They recommend Ms. Salam to become the new appointed Governor General so that she can serve their interests as a faithful PUP cadre. They wanted her to be pliable and to facilitate and acquiesce to their agenda. And I went on to say, however, the Governor General is accountable to and serves at the pleasure of the Belize head of state, who at that time, open bracket, was Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II of the United Kingdom and Commonwealth of Great Britain, close bracket. And the Governor General could not be found in contravention of the Belize head of state's interests. Otherwise, because she serves at the head of state pleasure, she could have been vanquished had the head of state become aware of the fact that she's playing hanky panky with them, because they are subordinate officers of hers, and she's a subordinate officer of the head of state. So I went on to keep my tongue out of my cheek so I didn't bite it, to say the following. The Governor General's office budget is in the purview of the Belize government, because they dictate what kind of funding goes to her budget for her office. And as a result, they don't provide any budget for her to have an independent, legal, constitutional minded entity or group to be able to review their requests to her for ascension and to be able to deny any of those requests on the basis of constitutional grounds. So, in the context of what I read earlier, where they try to get her to act according to their needs, which is for her to write out the existence of her office from our Constitution, as well as to write out the existence of the head of state from our Constitution, and to write into that Constitution some gobbledygook to say that then the Prime Minister will become the head of state. That's their intention. That's what they put in black and white as part of the PCC Act and as part of the PCC recommendations, which we'll get into maybe next week because I'm almost out of time and we can't get into that because we have been dealing with that particular series of recommendations, which is about 100 and odd, and we've been breaking them down and contextualizing them, making reference and commentary on them in regards to the onorousness, the bastardization, and the criminal, contemptuous behavior and action of these seditious-minded people. Because for all intents and purposes, they're trying to commit sedition by eviscerating the office of the head of state and for them to try and capture that office under their purview or powers. Now, I don't know where they're going to get the powers to accomplish that objective, because Belize is not going to have a revolution and overthrow the head of state. That's not a card that anybody can plan on and hope for. I'm going to take my tongue out my cheek now, and hopefully for the rest of the program, make some additional comments and just hope that I don't end up biting it. I don't mind biting my jaw now, but I don't want to bite my tongue. So let me stop being cute and get on with the business of the day since we're coming to the ending. I have 5 more minutes to go. I want to close it out cleanly without having to get heated under my collar, you know. But these matters are very extraneous, critical, and dangerous issues that we're talking about and dealing with when it comes to our prime minister and the ministers of cabinet trying to get the people and of the country to act as sovereign citizens, to work on their behalf to overthrow our current system in lieu of some future system that they want to put in place. Belize is an independent democracy. They want to be able to convert it into, well, it's an independent democracy under the Commonwealth. They want to be able to turn it into a Belizean republic outside of the Commonwealth and under their control and purview. They're not satisfied that they have gotten us to the point now that we are a defenseless, independent papa. We don't have any defense mechanism by which we can stand on our own feet and hold out against our bellicose neighbor to the south and the west, who are constantly harassing and threatening or security personnel and over migrating into our country to outnumber us and be able to take over our country without having to fight us. Our leaders are all in cahoot with that kind of. I was about to say something up the way. I'm trying to keep it clean. I'm almost at the end of the program successfully, and let me just leave that subject because let me just close out the program and get out of this. Let it be a nice program as it has been so far, and let me not. I may have other time at other point in on other dates to be able to deal with some of those issues that are really choking me right now. Okay, and so let me just go back to where I was. However, the Governor General is accountable to and serves at the pleasure of the Belize head of state, open bracket, who is Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II at that time, back in 4 years ago, of the United Kingdom and Commonwealth of Great Britain, close bracket. And the Governor General could not be found in contravention of the Belize head of state interest, to whom she serves at his pleasure currently. The Governor General's office budget is the purview of Belize government. She does not currently have an adequate law or constitutionalist in-house as part of her team to advise her or to help her forestall or derogate or reject proposed unconstitutional bills or acts, or to deny any assent thereof, as Belize is being taken into major constitutional altering crisis mode, with these guys attempting to commit sedition, like I said, trying to somehow or another believe that they have the authority and power vested in them to be able to write out of existence the head of state and overthrow the system with a bloodless coup. I laugh. I laugh. And uh, I have two commentaries here that I wanted to deal with, but I don't think I should. One of them is, as a matter of fact, both of these gentlemen have died before, so I don't think I should be gratuitous or you know, no, I shouldn't I shouldn't even bring their name up in the conversation or further the discussion. They're not here to answer for themselves, and or I don't think it's correct for me to be able to do that. So I'll just for tonight's program. Uh, a few seconds over the limit of the program, so I could just basically at this point in time close. I'd just like to say thanks to you, Belizeans at home and abroad, who had the opportunity to listen to us while we were live and who will be listening to us thereafter, probably after you have your meal there around tonight or maybe over the weekend. We do want to express our gratitude to you for coming to visit our website or my page or any of the platforms on which we produce these. We have them also on YouTube and others, Facebook and others. And I'm just personally trying to express my sense of gratitude to you for your time spared in listening to what we had to offer. Hopefully, you would have derived some positive public benefit from this exercise of us trying to do what we call teachable moments on our constitution of beliefs in regards to current affairs and serious matters that ails our country. Again, thank you very much, and I'll say good night until Monday.